When I was 6, I heard a woman crying outside my bedroom window. My mother told me not to look. Tonight, I finally understand why she was crying my name. When you're a child, you don't know the difference between a sound and a warning. I was 6 years old when I first heard her. Not a scream, not a wail, crying. The kind of crying that sounds tired, ancient, like it has already cried for a very long time and will continue long after you fall asleep. She was outside my bedroom window. Our house was nowhere near a river. That should have been impossible, but I remember the sound of water anyway, dripping, slow, like something wet was standing in the grass below, swaying back and forth, crying softly. My mother came into my room when I started to whimper. She didn't ask what I heard. She already knew. She sat on the edge of my bed, took my face in her hands and said, "Whatever you hear, don't look out the window." That was the first rule. I broke it, just a little. Enough to see the curtain move, enough to see something pale behind the glass, enough to hear her stop crying and start whispering, not in Spanish, not in English, in my name. My mother closed the curtain with one sharp movement, not gently, not the way you tuck a child in. She pulled it like she was sealing something out. Then she turned off the light. Darkness swallowed the room, but the crying didn't stop. It moved, from outside the window to the wall beside my bed, as if the sound had learned the shape of the house, as if it was walking. My mother held me so tight it hurt. Her heartbeat was fast, too fast for a calm adult. She whispered a prayer I had never heard before, not one from church, not in any language I recognized, and between the words she kept saying the same sentence over and over. "She already knows your voice." The crying changed. It wasn't sad anymore. It was searching, like someone calling for a lost child in a crowded place, but already knowing where that child is hiding. A soft, wet sound came from the window, like fingers sliding down glass. Then a shape pressed against the curtain. Tall, too tall. The fabric darkened where her face should have been. And suddenly, my bedroom smelled like river water. Rot, cold, leaves that had been underwater for too long. Our house was miles from any river. My mother covered my ears, not gently, hard, as if sound itself could be dangerous, but I still heard her, not with my ears, inside my head. A woman's voice, broken and soft, repeating, "He's awake. He can hear me. He remembers." Then she said something that made my mother gasp. She said my mother's name. My mother whispered, trembling, "She followed you home from the river." I didn't remember any river, but my body did, because suddenly I could feel water around my ankles, cold, even though I was dry in my bed. I could feel the pull of something deep, like a current that wanted to take me back. And in the crying, there was relief now. Not grief, relief. Like she had finally found what she was missing. My mother made me a promise that night, a promise I didn't understand until years later. She said, "If you ever hear her again, don't answer, don't remember, and never, ever let her hear your adult voice." La Llorona's crying stopped the moment she heard me breathe. Not a sob, not a whisper, just silence. The kind of silence that listens back. And in that silence, a thought formed in my mind. Not mine, not a child's. "I'll wait for you to grow." The years after that night blurred together.
Childhood has a way of doing that. It seals terror behind ordinary days, school, birthdays, laughter, as if nothing ever stood outside your window and learned your name. But some memories don't fade. They sink. They settle at the bottom of you, like something heavy in dark water. I never told anyone what I heard. Not my father, not my teachers, not the priest who came to bless the house a week later and flinched when he saw the curtain in my room still nailed shut. Yes, nailed. My mother had hammered it into the wall. She said it was to keep the light out, but light was never what she was afraid of. When I was 8, we moved, not across town, not to another city, to another state, far from rivers, far from bridges, far from anywhere water could gather and whisper. My mother chose the house, a dry place, cracked earth, no lakes, no streams. She checked the maps like she was planning an escape, and for a while, it worked. I didn't hear the crying again, but I dreamed of it every night. A woman standing in shallow water, her dress floating, her hair hiding her face, and in her arms, nothing. She would rock the emptiness and whisper, "He's still alive. He's still growing." I would wake up with wet footprints on my bedroom floor, not leading in, leading out. The first time I heard her again in the waking world, I was 12. It was on a recording, a school project. We were asked to record night sounds, crickets, wind, distant traffic. I left a recorder on my windowsill. In the morning, I played it back. At first, just static, then insects, then the faint hum of power lines, and then crying, very far away. So faint the teacher almost missed it, but I didn't. Because between the sobs, she wasn't calling a child. She was calling a name that hadn't belonged to me for years. My full name, the adult version, the one I hadn't grown into yet. That was when I understood something my mother had known all along. La Llorona does not search with her eyes. She waits. She listens for the voice a child will become. That night, my mother finally told me the truth. Not the legend, not the story people tell, but the rule. There is always one child who hears her and lives. That child grows up. That child carries her sound inside them. And one day, when their voice is deep enough, old enough, close enough to the voices she lost, her hands were shaking. That is when she comes back. She looked at me like she was already mourning. "You weren't spared," she whispered. "You were chosen." And somewhere, very far away, a river I had never seen shifted its current.
The first time I heard her as an adult, I thought it was a glitch, a fault in the recording. I was editing audio late at night. Old habit. I had learned to work with sound because silence made me nervous. Silence lets you listen too closely. I was cleaning up a narration file when I noticed a low hiss under my voice. Not static, not interference. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Rhythmic. Like someone standing just behind the microphone. I paused the track. The breathing stopped. I pressed play again. It came back. And beneath it, so faint I almost missed it, crying. Not loud, not dramatic, controlled, as if whoever was crying had learned to be quiet so they wouldn't wake a child. My skin went cold because I recognized the cadence, not the sound, the pattern, the way the sobs rose and fell like waves against a riverbank, the way the pauses were timed as if she was listening between them. For me. I told myself it was memory projecting itself onto noise. The brain is good at lying when it's tired. So I filtered the track, boosted the frequencies, removed my own voice. and what remained made my hands leave the keyboard. The crying wasn't behind the audio, it was synchronized with my breathing. When I inhaled, it paused. When I exhaled, it resumed, like it was learning my rhythm. That was the first sign she had found me again. A week later, my phone recorded something while it was in my pocket. I hadn't been using it. No apps open, no calls, just a voice memo that started by itself at 3:17 a.m. I woke up to the notification. When I listened, there was nothing for the first 30 seconds. Then, fabric moving, a soft splash, and a woman whispering, "Your voice is different now, but your silence is the same." I hadn't spoken, I hadn't moved, but in the background of the recording, you could hear my heartbeat from inside my chest, as if the microphone had been pressed against my skin. I began to hear water where there was none, in air conditioners, in the hum of traffic, in the rush of blood in my ears when I lay down. Always the same illusion, a distant river, flowing the wrong way, and layered into it, a lullaby. Not in words, in tone, the kind of sound a mother makes when rocking a child who won't stop crying, except this time, the mother was the one crying. I visited my childhood home. It was abandoned, boarded up. The neighborhood had dried out, lawns gone yellow, the creek nearby reduced to cracked stone. No water, no reason for moisture. But when I stood in front of my old bedroom window, I smelled it again. River rot, cold leaves, and something sweet underneath, like flowers left too long in water. The boards over the window were warped outward, as if something inside had once pressed to get out, or something outside had leaned in. I placed my ear against the wood. I heard crying, very faint, very patient, coming from below the house, from a river that did not exist. That night, the dreams changed. She wasn't standing in water anymore. She was standing in doorways, hallways, reflections, anywhere sound could travel. And every time I tried to look at her face, she would whisper, "Not yet. You're still remembering like a child." Then she would wait for me to wake, because she prefers you conscious. Dreams distort, waking ears don't. The final proof came from my mother's old tapes. After she died, I found a box of cassettes in her closet, unlabeled, all recorded at night, all silent, except for one recurring sound, a woman crying in the distance, and my mother whispering over it, "Not his voice yet, not deep enough, not broken enough, please, not yet." The last tape was dated the week I turned 18. There was no crying on that one, only my mother's voice, exhausted, defeated. She can hear him now. Then a pause, then, very softly, "God forgive me, I taught her to wait."
There is a rule no one tells in the legend. They say she is a mother who drowned her children. They say she wanders the rivers crying for them. They say she takes children who get too close to the water. All of that is a story meant to make adults feel safe. The truth is quieter. La Llorona does not search for children. She searches for a voice. Not any voice, a specific one. The voice that sounds like the ones she lost after it has learned how to speak in the dark. I learned the rule from a man who survived her, not as a child, as an adult. He was a sound engineer at a rural radio station near a dry riverbed. He told me the crying came through the static one night, not a broadcast, not interference, a presence. It cut through the signal like it knew where to stand. He said every time he adjusted the levels, the crying adjusted too, always staying just below his voice, always waiting for him to stop talking. When he finally went silent, he heard her clearly, not crying, listening. He told me she asked him one question. "Do you remember the river?" He said no. She said, "Then you are not the one." The crying faded. 2 weeks later, his coworker's daughter went missing. The one who used to sing to herself in the halls. The one with the same tone, the same tremble. The one who would have grown into the right voice. That is the rule. She does not take at random. She does not take in anger. She takes in sequence. One child per generation is allowed to live. Not spared, saved, preserved. So their voice can mature, so their breath can deepen, so their fear can learn how to speak. She is not replacing her children. She's rebuilding the sound of them, piece by piece, decade by decade, throat by throat. My mother knew this. That is why she taught me to whisper, why she made me read silently, why she flinched when my voice cracked during puberty, why she cried the first time I spoke in a low register. She wasn't afraid I would be taken. She was afraid I would be heard, because once Llorona recognizes the adult version of the voice she marked, she stops crying and starts calling. The rule is simple. If you answer her with your true voice, you become the river, not the water, the sound, the endless channel through which the crying travels. You do not disappear. You echo, and the next child hears you, and the cycle continues. I tested the rule. One night, I stood by a dry canal and spoke aloud. Just one word, my own name. The air grew heavy, the ground grew damp, and from far away, not from the canal, not from the wind, not from memory, I heard her respond. Not with my name, with my voice, perfectly, as if she had been practicing it for years, as if she had been waiting for it to be finished. That is when I understood what my mother meant. There is always one child who hears her and lives. Lives so the voice can be completed. Lives so the sound can be perfected. Lives so the crying can finally learn how to speak again.
They tell the story like a warning. They say La Llorona is a ghost. They say she is trapped in grief. They say she is searching for her drowned children. That is the lie. Grief does not wait for decades. Grief does not learn new voices. Grief does not practice. What follows you through generations is not mourning. It is hunger. Not for bodies, for continuity. I found proof in a town that no longer exists. It had been built along a river that dried up a century ago. The maps still showed water. The ground did not. But the people who lived there kept reporting the same thing. Crying in empty air. Footprints in dust that looked like they had been made by someone dripping wet. Children who spoke in their sleep with voices that were not their own. Always one child per decade. Always one who survived. Always one who grew up to become silent. The records said the same name appeared again and again. Different spellings, different languages, same sound. A woman, a mother, a voice that moved from body to body, not possessing, teaching, training. They were never her children.
not in the way we understand it. They were her echoes, fragments of a voice that once existed and was torn apart by water, time, and death. She is not trying to find them. She is trying to rebuild herself, one surviving child at a time, one grown throat at a time. I listened to archival tapes from the town's last radio station. In every decade, a different host, different accent, different age, same cadence, the same pause between breaths, the same soft, controlled sob buried beneath their speech, and at the end of every broadcast, the same phrase, "Stay with me. Don't let the sound stop." They thought they were comforting listeners. They were begging. Because once the voice stops being passed on, she has to start crying again. And when she cries, she chooses a new child. That is the lie hidden in the legend. She is not searching for what she lost. She is ensuring she is never lost again. And every generation, one of us is shaped to carry her, not to be taken into the water, but to become the water, the channel, the path, the sound that leads the next one to her. My mother didn't save me from La Llorona. She delayed me. She stretched the time between hearing and answering. She tried to keep my voice unfinished, unformed, unusable, so that when La Llorona listened, she would hear only a child, not what that child was becoming. But voices mature, throats deepen, breath changes, and the sound she marked finally completes itself. When it does, she stops crying and starts teaching it how to call.
The first time I heard my own voice cry, I was awake. Not dreaming, not recording, not imagining. I was sitting in the dark, listening to the quiet the way I always do before sleep, when the sound came from somewhere inside the room. Not from the walls, not from the air, from the space between breaths. A soft, broken sob, in my tone, in my cadence, in the exact pitch my voice settles into when I am tired and no longer trying to sound like myself. I did not speak, but the sound continued. It learned the shape of my silence. It copied the way my chest rises, the way my throat tightens, the way I swallow before a word. And then it whispered, "Now you know how it begins." I understood what my mother had meant by adult voice. It isn't about age, it's about resignation. The moment when your voice stops trying to be heard and starts learning how to echo. After that, the crying followed me everywhere. Not loudly, never in a way that would make someone else turn their head. Always just below the threshold of attention. In the hum of elevators, in the rush of showers, in the static before a video plays. And in every place, the same pattern. First listening, then matching, then guiding. She was teaching me how to place the sound, how to let it travel, how to hide it inside other noises so it could move without being noticed, just like she had done for centuries. I began to hear it in other people, in the way a woman on the bus sighed too deeply, in the way a child in a store hummed to herself with a melody that was not a song, but a rocking motion made audible. One child, always one, the voice not yet formed, but already shaped, already close. I understood then why she lets one live, so the echo never breaks, so the sound never ends, so the river never runs dry.
One night, as I lay listening, the crying shifted. It was no longer behind me. It was no longer beneath me. It was beside me, close enough that I could feel the cool of it against my skin. And in that nearness, she stopped sounding like a woman. She sounded like memory, like every night a child has ever been held while someone whispered that everything would be okay, knowing it wouldn't. She said, "You are ready to remember what you heard when you were 6. And the room filled with the sound of a river that has never existed except in voices. I am telling you this now because the rule has reached its final step. Not for me, for the one who hears, for the one who is quiet enough to let the sound settle, for the one whose breathing has already begun to match the rhythm beneath these words. The legend says she takes children. The truth is, she teaches them to become something that never stops calling. A voice that carries through walls, through years, through sleep. A voice that knows how to wait. When my mother begged me never to let Llorona hear my adult voice, she wasn't trying to save me. She was trying to protect the next child, the one who would hear the echo when mine finally became part of the river. Because once the voice is complete, it no longer belongs to the person who grew it. It belongs to the sound. You may think you are only listening. You may think these are just words, but sound is a path, and paths, when walked enough times, become rivers. The crying you almost hear under the silence, the one you dismiss as imagination, the one that seems to breathe when you do, that is not her yet. That is the space she is making. One day, a child will wake and hear a woman crying softly in the dark. They will be told not to look, not to answer, not to remember. And somewhere very far away, a voice will wait, not searching, not grieving, listening for the sound that is growing inside you now.
Thank you for supporting this small channel. Every view, every share, every comment means the world. If you know someone who loves slow, unsettling creepypasta stories like this, share it with them and stay tuned. The next story is waiting in the shadows.